Hi, it is July already, and we are in our seventh episode of the Spectacular Entrepreneur Show, and we really want to thank you for joining us here today. I am Nanette Polito, your host, and to tell you a little bit about me, I am a success consultant with Asentiv here in the greater Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky area, and I, like Asentiv consultants all over the world, are creating a spectacular life, an amazing business, and a spectacular life for all the people that we work with. I have Mike Macedonio with me again today. Eddie is kind of a little lost, but we love him. He's out there doing something else in the world. We miss you, Eddie, just want you to know. But Mike is here with me, and let me tell you a little bit about Mike. Mike is a New York Times best-selling author, speaker, and entrepreneur. Mike and his business partner, Dr. Ivan Misner, and oh, by the way, that's our other wonderful guest today, authored the world's best-known marketing secret, Building Your Business by Referral and Truth or Delusion, Busting Networking's Biggest Myth, which has hit several bestseller lists, including the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, USA Today, and of course, Amazon. Mike is the co-founder of Asentiv and has built Asentiv from a small training and consulting company to an international organization on 6 continents. Mike gives back to his community by volunteering. He holds a position on the board of directors for the Wisconsin's Big Cat Rescue, a nonprofit organization caring for abused and neglected tigers and lions. He is also an avid cyclist, and one of the proudest moments was he twice competed in the Leadville Trail 100 mountain bike race in Colorado. When he's not helping entrepreneurs, big cats, and cycling, he has the passion for his wife and entertaining friends. So, Mike, great to have you here today.
It's great being here, Nanette. Thank you.
And our other awesome, spectacular guest today, who is a second time or third time with us, is Dr. Ivan Misner. And of course, he probably needs no introduction, but I'm going to give one anyways for those of you who may not know him. Dr. Misner is the co-founder of Asentiv and is recognized as one of the world's leading experts on business networking and referral marketing. Along with those skills, Dr. Misner brings you his expertise and wisdom for growing a small business, started in his garage and turning it into a global brand. Dr. Misner co-founded Asentiv to make his decades of experience accessible to today's entrepreneurs. Dr. Misner's PhD is a name that is known across the business world. Ivan is the founder of BNI, Business Networking International, the world's largest business networking organization, which has more than 200,000 members. And it's no wonder that CNN calls him the father of modern network. So I want to welcome you both here. If you're all wondering what we're going to be talking about, I think it's a great subject today. Some entrepreneurs, I think a lot of entrepreneurs wonder, are they undervaluing themselves and are they undervaluing their prices? And with that, we are going to talk about that today to help you figure out, are you, and how you can fix it. So with that, gentlemen, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Nanette. It's great to be on. Mike, it's all yours.
Yeah, well, I think when we first start talking about pricing, we want to step back and think about what is the strategy, what's the mindset on how we're going to be pricing. And this is something Ivan published very early on in the first edition of the world's best known marketing secret. So, Ivan, could you explain what a few of those strategies might look like?
Yes. So, you know, I talked about this in a few books. So one of the first times I talked about it was in a book I wrote called Business by Referral. And in Business by Referral, I talk about 5 key pricing strategies. And so when you are thinking about your business, it's really important to kind of plug yourself into one of these types of marketing strategies. The first is the low-cost leader. The low-cost leader is someone whose primary focus is just on the low cost. They just want to be the cheapest out there. And generally speaking, it's not a service provider. So chances are pretty good none of the people that are on this call are or should be the low-cost leader in their industry. That's not really where a service-oriented individual wants to be. The next is it's called the broad differentiation strategy. And this is where the business differentiates their product or service based on a broad range of buyers. Whole Foods might be a company like that. Even Nordstrom's, although they're also considered a high service quality, they have many different products in there. So it's a broad differentiation. The next is the best cost provider strategy. It may not be necessarily the least cost, but it's a good cost. I was doing some research for this today, and Pabst Blue Ribbon beer would be considered one of the best cost providers. Even Target would be considered one of the best cost, not necessarily lowest cost, but best cost provider. So that's the first three. The fourth one is the focused or market niched strategy based on lower cost, but very niche oriented, and that would be a company like Home Depot, which is, they try to have a low cost but really niche orientation. And then the last is the focused or market niche based on differentiation. So these would be companies like Rolls-Royce. Rolls-Royce would be high-end, very expensive, but differentiated from other products and very focused kind of business. So these are the kinds of things that you want to think about. Of those five, the one that I sincerely doubt anyone who's on this call would be is the low-cost leader.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that would be a Walmart strategy.
That would be a Walmart strategy, no doubt about it. Walmart would be the low-cost leader, and I'll tell you, B&I has never tried to be. Well, I take it back. When B&I started, we were maybe the low-cost leader, but we realized very quickly that was a bad strategy if you wanted to provide any kind of service. So low-cost strategy is not ideal, particularly for service-based businesses.
Yeah. So with those strategies, I think people can position themselves where they think their strategy would be. But the next step is actually pricing. So how do we price our services? It's typical that people will look out into their industry and says, well, what's the competition charging? And I should be somewhere in that range. It's a good place to start, but I also think there's other ways to look at our pricing. For me, one of the biggest things I look at is value. What's the level of value that you're going to be bringing to an individual, or what's the level of value you're going to bring to the business, and you should be able to appropriately charge around that. One of the pitfalls I find in a lot of business, and I know, Ivan, you've got some research on this, is when business owners go out there and they pitch themselves on a per-hour basis. Right? Now, employees get paid by the hour in many cases, but most businesses, particularly service business, don't necessarily have to do that. I think sometimes they do that because they're unsure about what the project's actually going to take. For example, if you were a litigator, well, it all depends on what the other side of the attorneys are doing, which is going to determine how long you're going to be engaged. And pretty much they're both mutually motivated to keep it going. But for other industries, that may not be the case. Ivan, I know you've got some research on hourly pricing, and I've got some examples of some people I've worked with. Why don't you tell them about the research you've been seeing? Okay. Nanette, can you hear Ivan?
I can't hear you, Ivan.
Yeah, you mentioned lawyers, and sometimes lawyers will they'll do things based on a project. Litigation, not so much, but other things they'll do based on a project. And so it's kind of good to have a sense of what the hourly fee is, but you can also get attorneys to do based on projects. I've had attorneys do work for a trademark based on a flat fee. I've even had some civil issues done based on a flat fee. I even had a friend who got in trouble. It wasn't me who got in some legal trouble. And I referred them to an attorney that had a flat fee. I'll take care of it, even if it ends up going to court. This will be the number. And if I get you off tomorrow, this is the number. And so he was obviously highly motivated to get the guy off. And by the way, he was successful at getting the guy off at this flat fee. So he had a killing So many businesses will do a flat fee even if you don't think they're in that profession. But to answer your question, yeah, listen, there's a really good book that I recommend that I've just been reading along this line, and it's by Baxter, Robbie Baxter. It's called the Membership Economy, and I've just been reading this book. And one of the things that Baxter says in this book is, if you can position yourself as a membership fee or a service fee, that is, you pay so much a month, and you have my services. And then you might put boundaries around that, but it's basically a service fee monthly, which is kind of unheard of. You know, companies like Netflix was probably one of the first major companies to do that, but also other companies have jumped on that bandwagon, like Amazon Prime. And he talks about both of those companies in there. But even smaller companies, Asentiv has a membership model, and of course BNI has a membership model. We were way ahead of the curve in terms of doing that. And so if there are ways, I would recommend that you think outside the box to come up with ways that people can pay a flat fee on a monthly basis for various services that you might have to offer.
Yeah, and the critical mass has a lot to do with whether that's going to be effective and productive. It's sometimes a little bit more difficult to pinpoint a subscription fee for an individual or two, but when you have 100 and you know the average time that you're working with people, it can be far more profitable than individual proposals. And of course, some of the larger companies can see that. You know, I also think in terms of positioning your proposal with a per hour fee works against the sale. Okay, the buyer is immediately thinking, well, what's your motivation to get this done if you're getting that much per hour? And why are we paying that much per hour? I don't pay anybody that much. This is the buyer's, you know, receiving a per hour proposal. I was working with a recruiter a couple of years ago, and she told me she gets a lot of pushback from buyers when she's helping them recruit key people. Her niche is in construction. She's got a great database of all licensed professionals and people service providers, and I'm like, man, that's going to be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, that database and all that resources you bring. And she goes, yeah, and still they balk at $150 an hour. I said, okay, how long does it take to recruit and actually have somebody on staff? She goes, I can do it, my time invested, which is about 10 hours, and they'd have 3 very qualified interviews to fill a position. I said, such as a foreman, a licensed electrician, a licensed plumber. I'm thinking, here's what I think the owner of the construction company is going through his head. I have very valuable, important people on my staff. My foreman, my lead project managers are not getting paid $150 an hour. Why am I going to have you do that sitting behind a desk? And, you know, that's their thought. I said, however, I have to believe when somebody needs a foreman, when somebody needs a licensed contractor, it's keeping them up at night. And if you told me for $1,500 I can make that go away, the check is written. Okay, so it's all about how we position the pain to value proposition as opposed to, well, I want to stop punching my clock and it's going to be tallying up at $150 an hour.
We were talking about this before we went live, and it reminded me of a really, really old joke I heard years ago about this guy who brings in his car into a shop to get repaired, and the repairman opens up the hood and he looks inside, and there's all these bolts in there, and he's looking at all these bolts, and he pulls out a wrench, and he gets this one bolt and he tightens it. He says, all right, start it up. Boom, car started right up. He said, okay, that'll be $51. And the guy was like, $51? Really? $51? He said, I want an itemized bill. So the guy gave him an itemized bill. He looked at it and said, tightening bolt, $1. Knowing which bolt to tighten, $50. And that's kind of what you're talking about there, Mike, is that, you know, you bring to the table a lot of experience. There are a lot of stuff. I mean, if it were me in that car, I'd be still looking at bolts. You know, I'm missing the handyman gene. I couldn't repair it. But bringing that kind of experience to the table, you can't underestimate. And I think that's what happens with particularly small business owners, is that they don't really value the experience they bring to the table.
Yeah.
But how do you get them over that? How do you get them into their own belief of, I'm worth this? And because I think that's really the biggest problem with a lot of entrepreneurs is they know that they have a value for themselves, but moving that forward to my client and going, oh, I don't know if I really want to ask them for that amount of money. How do you get past that?
Yeah. So, Nanette, I see two sides of it. First of all, it's the value of the consumer. And in the case with the person driving in with the car and it's not running well, okay, what's the value of that going away? Is this a $5 problem, a $50 problem, or a $5,000 problem? Okay, so that side. And then the other side is, as the business owner, the service provider, knowing what our cost is. In this case, it was the investment of years to know which screw to turn. Okay, and when we start evaluating how much we've invested, our time, our training, and the work we've done, there's a number with that. One of the key things I look at, starting with, is sometimes is cost of delivery, what it's actually going to cost me to deliver my service. But the other thing I look at is, what's the client acquisition cost? What does it take me on average for me to work with a client? And for those that are on the call right now, it's a simple math equation. What you'll do for the past year is evaluate all of the marketing that you spent. And I know a lot of us do relationship marketing. There are still costs. I still pay for business cards. I still have online marketing. I still go to events. But I add up all of those marketing dollars. If you have an office that people come to, part of that rent, part of that lease should also be marketing. Okay, if you didn't need a Class A location, you can do it in a basement. That would be the difference.
Okay.
You add up all of that cost, then you add up another line. Then you add up all of the time, all of the networking, all of the proposal times, all of your sales preparation, all your sales presentation time, and you get a total time allotted to bring in clients. You simply take each of those and divide it by the number of clients you take on in the course of a year.
I hope people took notes with that, because that was a really good list of things to consider. And I think we're recording this, correct, Nanette, so people can come back and listen to it. That is correct, and it will be
up on our Asentiv YouTube site channel.
Yeah, I'd go back and get that list, because I think that's really good. You can't begin the discussion without understanding your costs. That's important. And then you got to be willing to take the step to charge what you're worth, what you're really worth, not just what you think you're worth, but what you're really worth. And when you have taken a look at those costs and you understand what you are worth, you have to step up and ask for all you're worth. I remember when I increased my speaker's fee by 30%. By 30%. And I was like, oof, that's, I'm gonna lose some speaking engagements when I do this. You know what happened? They increased. My speaking engagements went up. My paid speaking engagements. I don't charge for BNI, but to speak to other organizations or Asentiv, but to speak to other organizations, I charge. And my speaking engagements actually went up a little when I increased it by 30%. They did not decrease, and I was expecting them to decrease. So if you know your costs and you know what you're worth, you just got to step up and make that. Now, I did do it. I tell you one thing that I did the first time, and Nanette, you were about to ask a question.
No, I was going to tell a story, but go ahead.
One thing that I did, and again, we talked about this as well, Mike, was when I made that step of increasing the cost, I also did a value add. So that I felt a little bit better. I gave them a certain number of books, but my value, my cost was maybe 5%, and I increased the fee by 30%. So added a little bit of value and substantially added the cost, and it didn't decrease my business at all.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just tell a quick story, because I think also part of it is that you have to step out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Because I think that some people feel like, I know I'm worth this. I see other people getting and I know I'm as good as those people. And of course, Mike, I love your calculation, but I will tell you that what happened to me was I was had a program. Somebody came to visit my program. They said, I really don't want to come to your program. Well, I really wanted them in the program. I will admit that to you. So my whole deal was, I thought, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to quote them an outlandish number to work with me as a private coach. And that way, that'll probably drive them back into the program, because I believe that's what they really needed, was they needed the whole package of that camaraderie and everything. However, and I threw this number out there that I thought for sure they were going to go, oh my gosh. And because I had a different goal, normally I would have been so nervous to throw this number out there. And they went, okay, I'll do that, no problem, and wrote me a check. So sometimes you have to, that's why I'm saying, I think sometimes a lot of times people are not charging their value just because of themselves, versus they go through this whole process and then they still go, I don't know if I can still offer or ask for that, because they may not come to me.
Well, in terms of pricing, sometimes we're creating, by projection, we're creating the price objection.
Right.
And in many cases, the prospect might not even be considering price, or they're looking at it, as a friend of mine says, people work with different zeros. And they look at something that they say is expensive. The other person on the other side saying, that's nothing. But one of the things you did do, and that I think is very important, is when you are making a proposal, that you do not start with the low end first. You start with the high end. And if you have a super high end, say for example it's $10,000, but the average client is going to be spending around $3,000 or $4,000. When you start with the $10,000, it kind of neutralizes the person for the second choice. And some people may take your lowest program. Okay, but you're never going to have success moving people from a low ticket into a medium or high ticket.
Yeah, that's so true. That is so true.
Yeah, that's actually, there's some pretty good research on that. And I'm trying to remember what the term is. I think it is price mirroring, but that doesn't. It might be price imaging. But what it is that you always give, whenever possible, give 2 or 3 alternatives, and oftentimes people will pick the medium alternative. They don't necessarily want the cheapest. They often don't want the most, but they'll pick a price in between or on the high side. Might be called price imaging, but there's a term for it. But we offer different services at different levels.
Then I wanted to share one of the traps people get in with their pricing. Several years ago, they had done a study. It's called a freelance consultant study. And 1,200 consultants were evaluated for how they market their business. And as you can imagine, when you're a freelance consultant, there was a lot of high-touch marketing, a lot of relationship marketing that was happening with relatively lower high-tech. So time was a big part of the measurement of the marketing. And it's interesting, when they measured people, their level of success based on the number of hours a week they invested into their networking and sales, you would expect that the people with the higher investment were getting more business. Obvious. Okay, that's very obvious. But more importantly, to comparing people that were putting an hour or 2 in as opposed to 5 or 6 hours a week, interestingly, the people that were investing more in their marketing charged more.
Ah.
Okay, so the rates were significantly different for the people that were marketing more and what they were getting paid as the people that weren't. And here's what I believe. First of all, they believe in their value and they know their client acquisition costs. But more importantly, the people that were frugal with their marketing were basically having very weak pipelines, which means you end up taking everything that comes along. In some cases, meaning you're just taking the business in just to have business and you're not even making money on it. Okay, so you take in a lot of that low end, low ticket, as opposed to when your pipeline is robust, it's like, I'm going to take the good stuff. I'm going to take the stuff that's my sweet spot, that's profitable, that's enjoyable. So sometimes we have to evaluate, are we pricing it like this because we're in a drought, we're in desperation because there's nothing in that pipeline.
Well, I think also, and this is like probably a whole nother conversation that's not for today, but I also think that people also have to look at their relationship with money. And some people don't believe they're worthy of what they could be and probably should be getting. And they need to change that mindset. So just very simply, uh, again, not getting into a whole thing, but just my recommendation is that anybody out there who they said, oh yeah, I came from depression parents, so I had a whole thing with money. Like I wasn't worthy, we had to scrounge, we had to whatever. Now I don't feel that way at all. And what I think you have to do is look at yourself and say to yourself, okay, what is my relationship with money? You know what, I'm deserving and there's plenty of money to go around. And money is not dirty. If you've ever been to the Federal Reserve and you see it come right off the printing press, it is just beautiful. And so you can keep it as clean as you want, and you deserve as much as you want. So just think of fill in this blank, you know, because of money, I can. And fill in that blank to whatever it is and tell yourself that every day. And you will start to open up and change your world.
So if you've got some challenges like Nanette is saying there, which I think you made some really good points, there's a book that I could recommend for you. It's called Money and You. And there's a website about it as well, moneyandandyu.com. And it's written by, actually written by a good friend of mine, D.C. Cordova. The letters D and C, Cordova. DC also has a program, she does seminars on Money and You, and I've sent people to it, close friends and even one or two employees who had issues with money. And I recommend the book, and I recommend that program, Money and You by DC Cordova. It'll address those issues that you're talking about, Nanette, really well.
I think it all ties together. Would you not agree, gentlemen?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, your relationship with money absolutely makes a difference in how you manage money, how you make money, how you spend money. Yeah, definitely.
So people out there, I didn't say this at the beginning, but ask your questions. I would love to throw it at these guys. So go to the dashboard you have there. You'll see a little question box. Put your questions in there and let me throw them at them. I'll let you guys continue until we see a few.
You know what you were saying about people that are somewhat resistant. They feel getting money could be bad. And one of the things I share is no one said you had to keep it.
Yeah, that's true.
All right? Millions of dollars can come in. You can do millions of dollars worth of service and value, and you know, and no one says you had to keep it.
Nope, you don't. And everyone's different. I've always felt that a certain percentage of the money I make needs to go to charity,
right.
And so it feels good. It feels good giving money away.
Yeah, or helping other people.
Givers gain, right, Ivan?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry, Mike. Go ahead. I apologize.
Along with contributions and stuff. In many cases, it's making employment or giving work opportunities or giving business opportunities to other people.
Right.
I was watching this online banter go back and forth, and this guy was giving Richard Branson a rash of things about, because he's so successful and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, did you have any idea how many people, because of his success, are employed or creating more business, or the business is feeding other businesses? Like, come on, look at the value that enterprise brings to the economy, and not just in one area, around the world.
And they need to do their homework, because Virgin Unite gives away millions of dollars. So I mean, we know one of the people at Virgin Unite, and so I mean, you just got to do your homework. People are so funny. I always think it's interesting what people think someone else should do with their money. It's their money. Do whatever the heck they want with their money. I should be determining what I need to do with my money, but to tell a billionaire how they should spend their money is just plain stupid.
I would agree. We do have a comment that came in just now.
Yeah.
I apologize to the person listening, but I don't think I could pronounce your name, so I do apologize. But they said, I don't go lower than I offer, even if my client does not. So I think what they're saying there is that, this is my price and I'm not going lower, so take me or leave me. So
That's a great posture. You know, I had this conversation with a coach I was working with last year, and you know, we're both in the consulting business. We both sell, you know, coaching and training. As a matter of fact, it's almost parallel businesses. And I'll tell you his name. His name is Steve Napolitano, if anyone wants to look him up. But in a private conversation, we were talking about people that come up and ask you to discount it. Okay, this is the value. This is what I have, but I'd like to do it for less. And one of the things he shared with me is that he used to, and now he doesn't at all. And his experience was every time he has discounted a price for somebody, it doesn't work out. He says they don't get value. It's not an enjoyable situation. It just doesn't work out. And so now his position is anytime someone comes and says, "I know, Steve, this package is $15,000. You know, I can come on board for 12." He just simply goes, I appreciate that $12,000 your number, but my experience has been when I take people on at a lesser amount, it doesn't work for them. It doesn't work for me. And at the end, it just became a bad arrangement. And so I'm just going to respectfully say that we don't do this. And I sat there.
We had an Asentiv trainer who had a similar approach. You probably remember him. He said, I can't give you the value that you need at that price. I can help you accomplish the goals you want at the price that I am quoting, but I cannot give you the value that you are seeking at that number. And
that's
then just
awesome words.
Yeah.
Now,
we all thought it was awesome when we heard it.
Oh my God, those are awesome words.
Yeah.
This is going to go back to our early days, but I can remember, you know, in franchising and expanding this company, we would give extremely high value, you know, for the money. And I was working with somebody else buying a country. It was a team of them buying a country, and you know, that had all worked out. And then it came back, and they wanted it for like $2,000 or $3,000 less. And I was furious. I was so pissed off. I'm like, don't rock. So I contacted Ivan. Could you believe they did this? He goes, calm down. You're just going to send him an email. Okay, this is what you're going to send him. Listen, I'm so sorry you feel that way. I was really looking forward to working with you. And this is exactly what Ivan told me. He says, look, in 24 hours, they're going to come back and take it. Oh, 48 hours on the max, but I guarantee they're going to come back and take it. And true to form, within 24 hours, yeah, we understand, yeah, we'll take it. It was a terrible arrangement. It was absolutely, they did not work out. If I had the advice that Steve gave me last year, I would have said, I find that when people want to do this, it doesn't work out at the end, because this was a perfect example where it didn't. Okay? They were troublesome. They didn't want to do the work it was going to take. You know, they didn't want to take advice. It was a disaster. But it's still great advice, Ivan. But in the future?
Well, they usually say yes, but you have to feel confident in your product or service. They usually say yes, and my experience has been, and the ones who say yes are oftentimes okay. You know, I can't explain why they behaved the way they did after that, but the fact that if you stand firm on your price, the majority of people, and you know you're providing value, that goes hand in hand. The majority of people will say okay.
You know, and there are other ways. For example, if somebody is truly in a financial position where they can't afford it, they need it, they want it, they'll do anything they can, but right now it can't happen. There are other ways of arranging. For example, it could be overtime financing. It could be taking a piece of, in our case with marketing, you know, we can take a piece of the net growth increase. Okay, you can also take equity in the company. So there are other ways that you can work around other than just the cost price point. And many times those other options could be even more attractive to the buyer.
They can be. I've certainly bartered services in the past, which is not quite one of the things you said, but it's something that I've done, particularly with online work. You know, there's something that someone wanted and they couldn't afford it, and so we just worked out a barter arrangement, and that worked out really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, they just paid off what they owed, and it was a great relationship. And the nice thing is, it probably continue to be a great relationship
because you helped each other.
Yeah.
Exactly. Still looking for more questions out there. So if you're out there, please please throw them our way. We'd love to answer anything you would like us to answer for you. The person that asked before was from Kenya. So nice to know that people are reaching us from all over the world.
Nice.
And he did forgive me for not being able to say his name.
Those 5 areas that I talked about when we started today, I don't think we didn't put those in the 4th edition of World's Best Known Marketing Secret, did we?
I don't believe so, no.
Yeah. So you can find those if you can still get this book, Business by Referral. That's where I read them from. And I think it's still available on Amazon, Business by Referral.
I just want to cover that client acquisition cost and pick up on that. So, just rattling off the different places that we're spending money on marketing. Okay, could be part of your lease, signage, website. If you're paying any pay to click to pay for online, certainly all of the traditional marketing, so we have radio, television, print. You just want to make sure you itemize them all for the year. Add that total up. But when you get that client acquisition cost, it also starts telling you, not only in terms of pricing, but what clients aren't worth taking. I was working with an esthetician, and her client acquisition cost was actually quite high. It was actually several $100s a client, and I think about 6 hours of marketing and sales that she was typically doing for the amount of new clients she was bringing on. And one of the pieces of business she was doing is brow waxing. Now, you're familiar with that, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, I get it. I have, as you can tell, I have it waxed all the time.
And she explained to me what that was all about. But the most important thing to me was it was a 10 to 15-minute service that she was charging $25 for. And my point in the marketing is that you're taking on that business and not doing the full scope of the work that you do. Your break even on your client acquisition cost based on the number of times the client would come back. Your break even was at almost 3 years. All right, so we had to have a way to say no, because a lot of these people were not also upgrading. If they were coming in there and they were buying a bigger product or service, it would be worth it, but they weren't. And so what we did is we repositioned it, value added. We said, well, we don't do that, but we have it packaged with this, this, and this, and we can charge a more reasonable fee than the $10 service. But,
if it was my eyebrows, it'd be $100. I mean, there's just too much eyebrows. And here's one of the things we've never, and I see a question from our friend from Kenya. I've never been able to figure out is why do I have gray hair but my eyebrows are still brown? That doesn't.
Yeah,
that works.
Yeah.
You're a youthful visionary, Ivan.
Visionary. Hey, so our friend from Kenya asks, do I barter often? And the answer to that is no, I don't. It is actually pretty rare that I do. I think when I was new in business, I did it a little bit more, and mostly had good experiences. Not all, but mostly had pretty good experiences. But it's very rare that I barter services anymore.
But would you recommend it as a startup, Ivan? Maybe that's his question.
Selectively, yes, I would. Okay. But you got to be careful, because you just got to be careful. Be very selective. You
really have to know who you're dealing with.
Yeah, you really need to know them a little bit. The person I just bartered with, I knew, knew for a few years. So yeah, it helps if you know them. So be really, really selective.
Mike, have you bartered?
Very seldom. Very seldom. And there are people that I could easily see myself bartering with. It's just, but I just don't bring up that conversation.
Right.
Yeah, I never bring it up, by the way.
Yeah.
Never. Yeah.
I have somebody bartering with me, but I never knew it was a barter. I thought I was going to be paying them, and then I said, I've never gotten a bill, and they said, no, I want you to refer me. So if you refer me on, and so then we had a whole discussion about that, and I actually sat down with them for 2 hours to really learn about how to refer them and be able to help them. And
here's something. It's kind of barter. I mean, I had somebody. If you run a business long enough, you always get people asking you for money. asking you for a loan, which, by the way, no other than employees, no one has ever paid me back a loan, ever. I'm
Oh, wow.
61 years old. Other than employees, no one I've ever loaned money to, ever, has given it back.
Can I borrow some money?
No.
I know. I want to too. Thanks.
But here's what I do, and we're kind of off subject, but not completely. I'll say to them, look, I need, or I'm willing to take your service, what you do. You can work for it. So it's not barter. I mean, it's not a loan. And I'll barter work rather than give them money.
Well,
I've done that.
Well, I think you can run into a danger zone also, because I think word hits the street, and you can get into the, well, go talk to her because you know what, she won't charge you, she'll want you to do something for her.
Right.
And that's a dangerous zone also. And so your reputation becomes, well, you're never getting paid, but you'll barter with the world.
Yeah,
and so you're really undervaluing yourself at that point. So it does really tie into our conversation of today.
Yoram's
We have
asking
about
another
4
question.
minutes to go before we go backstage, so don't leave us. We're going to go backstage and you'll be able to ask some more questions. But if you have any, please get them up there, because we'd love to, again, put them up live for the whole world, because you might ask the question that someone else who's going to watch this later on go, oh, thank God they asked that question. So
there's one comment from Graham that is War and Peace. I'll let you look at that one over in the net. And then Iram has a question. You want to read Iram's question, and I'll find the spot to answer it.
Not a question, more of an observation. Is that the one you're
looking
at?
The one above it. Iram says, I'd love it if you would repeat the 5 levels of business models you talked about. So let me give you those 5 levels again, Iram. And while I'm doing that in the net, you can look over the observation.
I will. First
is a low-cost leader. This is someone like a Walmart. Then a broad differentiation strategy, someone that their company's product offerings appeal to a broad range of buyers, some like Whole Foods. Then a best cost provider, someone like Pabst, a Blue Ribbon beer, a focused market niche strategy, something like Home Depot, and then a focused market niche based on differentiation. So Rolls-Royce is a good example.
You know, when you create a brand, for example, of service of cutting edge, top quality, best service, and so if that brand is really to be prestigious, and then you attach on it a discounted rate, that inconsistency confuses the customer. And I say it's like going into a Nordstrom's where you're going to get the finest clothes, and we just moved it to the very back on a discount rack. People they don't see the value anymore.
Exactly.
And by the way, again, that what I just reviewed with you is on page 44 of Business by Referral. And yeah, I agree with you. And I'll reiterate that I think doing a value add, though, can help. It addresses the discount. That people feel like they're getting something, but you're adding value and keeping your price the same. The thing is, you have to add value in a way that doesn't really hit your bottom line.
This was more of an observation. It says, not a question, more of an observation. The first time as a consultant that I stood firm on my price was this year when recruiting for my first Asentiv program. I decided how much I would charge and stuck by it. It has been a stretch for some of those those attendees, but they are fully committed. I genuinely think that they have had better results by being committed to the program. Yeah. And I agree with that. I think that when you make people stretch, you have a far better result because they're stepping up to their own plate, not just your plate.
No, when a client's participation is involved for their success, like when you're coaching, if you give it away for free, that's what they value it at, and that's what they implement at. On the same token, some of the people that I've hired paid a lot of money, and I knew that it was going to be worth it. Okay, because part of that skin of the game, part of that pain on my side, I said I'm getting my money's worth, and so I'm going to make sure that I do the things that I need to do.
Exactly. Well, we're at that given hour. Gentlemen, do you have anything else you'd like to add before we close out here and go backstage?
Listen, I'm guessing most of you aren't quite at this level, but tuck away what I'm about to suggest to you because it might be of value down the road as your business scales and gets larger. There are companies that can help you with pricing, and I have used them in the past, and they are specialists, experts at doing survey work to determine what the cliff point is where you will lose clients if you charge this amount. And so it's a science, and there are companies out there that'll do it. I'm guessing, if you're a solopreneur, this probably isn't for you, but tuck that in the back of your mind. There are companies out there. I've used them. One of the companies I've used in the past is a company called Atenga, Atenga, and they're very good at doing analysis on your price point. So that's all I have to ask
Awesome.
to add.
Mike?
Along with that, Ivan, sometimes it does take the outside person to help you really see the true value. So a coach can help you with that. Just real quick recaps. Know your client acquisition cost in terms of dollars and hours. Make sure you're marketing relentlessly enough so your pipeline's full and you're not taking stuff because you have to. You're taking stuff that you want to. Okay, that will help with the pricing. And when Nanette was saying about the mindset, just because you make millions of dollars doesn't mean you have to keep it. Okay, you can provide service or you can provide contributions to all kinds of people and organizations. So let's not make that be a mindset thing that prevents you from charging what you're worth and making what you should.
Awesome. Gentlemen, I want to thank you. I want to ask everyone, please don't leave. We are going to turn off the recording. We are going to go backstage so you can ask any question you'd like that can be on today's topic or any topic you have. I want to remind you we will be here the third Thursday of next month, and we will be talking about the lack of clients and business. And I'm sure that for some of you that will hit home for you, that you want to grow your business. This show will be on our Asentiv channel on YouTube by tomorrow afternoon. We invite you to watch it again because there has been a lot of great material put in here today, a lot of reference material, and of course Mike's great calculation. You definitely want to, if nothing else, go back and get that calculation because it is amazing. We also ask you to, if you have anything that you'd like to either ask us or show ideas, please go to our Facebook page at Asentiv, and leave us any questions you have, any comments you have. We would surely love to hear from you. And we would love to have you come back next month and invite every person you think would benefit from this program because we want your success. Please remember, we are always looking for you to have an amazing business and a spectacular life. Thank you for joining us on the Spectacular Entrepreneur Show, and we are now going backstage. See you next month.